Hello, this is Pastor Deborah again, and welcome to another wonderful episode of my life called It's Time. It's here in the School of Light in the Kingdom of Agape Love Volume 1. Because there is a Volume 2 which is powerful, true personal stories of helping people in great darkness. This is story number 28. Called It's Time, and this is episode number 23. And we're picking up in another part of my story, because you must realize each of us has to spiritually die in our soul to our old self and become a new spiritual creature. We saw this in the movie called King David with Gregory Peck. When Gregory Peck, King David, had adultery with a married woman, Bathsheba, and killed her legal husband, Uriah, on the battlefield. The prophet came to King David and said, "This story you just told me, and the sentence for a man who stole a little lamb from another, that man must die." Well, King David went into the Holy of Holies. You can see this in the movie Gregory Peck. And he confessed his sin, that he as an adult had become murderous and jealous, and obsessive, greedy, lustful, and murderous. And he killed someone who was innocent. And he asked the God of the Holy of Holies, as he laid his hands on the Ark of the Covenant, to kill that David, that had become so evil and wicked, and restore unto him the child that he was out in the fields with his father's sheep, where he could hear God's voice, where he knew God's presence. And a lightning bolt came. The old, evil, wicked David, in his soul, and his heart and his spirit, died. And the child was reborn, innocent and pure, in front of God's heart and eyes. You must understand there must be a sacrifice, a death of the one who does evil. This is how Pastor Deborah became alive. Jan, who was evil and wicked in her soul and her life, which you've been hearing about her story, chose to die on a cross to save some Satanists. So just one person in a satanic meeting could be born again into the kingdom of heaven. But at that time, Jan died. I didn't know it, but I willingly went and told God I would go to a cross, and I would sacrifice myself for another, to show his great love. And when I did that, I didn't know, but years later, I learned the truth of that vow and oath that I took, and how Pastor Deborah, which took 2 years to bring forth into my soul from my spirit, to become planted and real. So let's pick up in this story. We're going to begin episode number 23. This is powerful, true story. I'm telling you my story so you will understand about death and resurrection, death and rebirth, and where it takes place. I was telling you my story about Deborah was arising and becoming the new spiritual identity of the spiritual person, the forever person who I was, who would live on after death. And when all these attempts that Satan went after me failed, he went for the last big one, the major attack. He believed he could win, to be rid of this spiritual Deborah, to laugh in God's face about death and resurrection. so that the old, evil, wicked, sinful Jan would come back alive by my own will. Remember, Jan had made a vow that she was willing to freely die. Until you can get there in your soul, whoever you are, male or female, child, teenager, and you say that old me that has lived on this planet and done evil, wicked things, had evil, wicked thoughts, until you are willingly and will freely die unto God and allow God to rebirth your spirit into a new identity. Remember, I said I was willing to die in a satanic meeting on a cross, be killed alive, just to save one Satanist in obedience to God. Remember, God even asked an ancient Hebrew named Abraham, our great-grandpa, if he would take his only son, Isaac, to a mountain and kill him in obedience. This got played out again at the same mountain, same place, on a cross. Thousands of years later, nothing's changed. All right, let's begin. So once again, upon visiting Jan's son in Pittsburgh, his name is James, Pennsylvania, at his home one night when Jan's son was out at work at a church and Deborah was home alone. Deborah had already been reborn. She even told her son in his kitchen that Jan was dead and no longer his mother. But Deborah was up and alive and asked if he would be her spiritual son. He said yes. See, I had to do this in front of my family, did it in front of my husband and friends. Deborah heard the voice of the Lord that night as she laid in her bed through the Holy Spirit, and he said, "It's time." I knew what that meant. Satan had petitioned the judge of the universe just now for the vow that Jan had made so many years earlier, 15 to be exact, that she would willingly give her life in one of his satanic meetings to save just one of his Satanists. You have to learn to be very careful what you say you're willing to do. So I, Deborah, went to my bed and spiritually prepared myself to die. I knew when James, Deborah's son, would come home, he would eventually look for me, and I would be dead on my bed. I knew the autopsy would show and conclude that I had died of natural causes, and Satan would finally be free of me and my spiritual interference. Remember, he had been trying to spiritually stop me, probably since my early childhood. Tried to make me go crazy, mentally ill, have me raped, kidnapped, destroyed in my own family. And he'd been trying to do that even more since 1998. And it was now 2010. And he has had no spiritual luck at all. He's tried to kidnap me, poison me, give me a heart transplant, have me kidnapped from church, almost killed in my own home with a pair of scissors from someone I was trying to help. So when I was ready, I said to the Lord, "I'm ready, Lord." And off I went. My spirit, Deborah, went to a satanic meeting. I was spiritually placed inside of another physical body. I know this sounds too unbelievable, but there is a lot of spiritual travel going on both sides. Please read the book of Ezekiel. It will help you to see more clearly this spiritual event and many of the stories in Volume 2. Satan himself was there, and he himself was going to do the honor himself of finally killing me, this thorn in his side, this spiritual shepherd, mother, king, deliverer, and judge from the kingdom of heaven. A great movie to help see what this spiritually look like is the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. When the great lion, Aslan, goes willingly to sacrifice himself for the sins of Edward, a son of Adam, for being a traitor to Narnia and his family. After the White Witch came into the camp of the great lion and demanded her rights by the laws of Narnia, that the blood of a traitor belongs to her. And if she does not get that blood, all of Narnia will be destroyed by fire and water. She tells all there that they're mere human weapons of steel, would and could not deny her rights by the law of Narnia. Excellent, excellent information if you're listening. Then, in the scene where Aslan, the great lion, is bound and dragged up to the stone altar, and the hordes, the demons of the White Witch, are there, and they are her demons, who had come to watch and celebrate this death of the spiritual enemy that had been preventing them from their desired lust to rule all of Narnia and its lands and people and animals. This shows you something of what this satanic spiritual meeting I, Deborah, had been spiritually taken to in the spirit, what it looked like. Then the White Witch brings down the knife to slay the great lion. Also, the movie The End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great visual of what the satanic meeting looked like in the physical. On New Year's Eve in New York City, when everyone was distracted at the dropping of the ball in Times Square, Satan and his followers were in an abandoned building in the basement, having their satanic meeting to consummate a sexual act with a girl who had been chosen since birth, and with a man who has also been chosen for Satan to inhabit, to bring forth a chosen child, the Antichrist, and to unleash all the demons out of hell, the bottomless spiritual pit of captivity and torture. The scene with the chanting and the candles is what it looked like in the physical. But spiritually, like the movie The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, all at the stone altar of sacrifice of the great lion, Aslan. So Satan began gloating over his spiritual victory. He was finally to have, by the permission of the Judge of the universe, the Most High God himself, by the legal rights of the words, the vow freely given many years ago by Jan to God, that she would allow herself to be killed in one of his satanic meetings to prove her love and obedience to him and to save just one Satanist slave in the meeting. Remember, Jan had willingly said she would die to save just one Satanist, and Satan would freely sacrifice one of his many slaves to have me killed and off of planet Earth. Now I'm going to stop right there, and we'll pick up in the next episode. I don't want to get too far. This is so unbelievable what my life was and still is. And you need to understand vows, sacrifice, God's heart, your enemy, and what goes on that you don't normally see with your earthly eyes. So you come back to the next episode number 24, and we'll pick up there. All right, this is Pastor Deborah. Bye-bye.